All right, this is the meeting of the Lehigh County Authority Board of Directors, January 10th, 2022. This meeting is being recorded, is also being held virtually with actually a hybrid with some people here present in the board office, boardroom, and also others at home. We should all be able to hear each other and be heard. So if there's any problems, let us know so we can correct that. Let's start off with a roll call of the board of directors, followed by staff, followed by any public present.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll do roll call of the board first. Brian Noggle.
Here.
Scott Bieber.
Here.
Richard Bonner.
Here.
Norma Cusick.
Here.
Ted Lyons. Kevin Baker.
Here.
Linda Rosenfeld.
Here.
Jeff Morgan.
Here.
Amir Famili.
Present.
All right. So we have 8 board members present, which is a quorum. We have our solicitor, Mike Gall from King Spry, on the call with us today. And then staff, in addition to myself, Lisa Gross, we have Ed Klein, John Parsons, Chris Mahan, Chuck Volk, Susan Sampson, Andrew Moore, Phil DePoe, Lisa Miller, Todd Marion. We also have some guests today. Herb Higginbotham and Mason Beck are on the call from HDR. Amanda Schumacher is here from Horton Lawson. And it looks like Jenny McKenna from the city of Allentown is on the call.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. The board packets were distributed electronically in advance and also hard copy. Did everybody receive them? Did anybody not receive them? All right, let's review the agenda and any need for executive session. Any changes, corrections, additions?
I have no changes or corrections. I do have one item under staff comments. I'll give a little bit of a COVID update for the authority's operation under COVID, and no executive sessions planned.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, let's move to the approval of the minutes from December 13th, 2021 board meeting. Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'm here, and I would like to point out that this may have been the longest set of minutes that we've had in a number of years, but we were failed by artificial intelligence. I would direct you to paragraph number 3 on page 5, where the conclusion of the 4th sentence is the word plan, P-L-A-N, which I suppose the intelligence system thought was a correct word, but when in fact it really is plant, P-L-A-N-T. With that suggested change, I recommend the approval of the minutes to our previous meeting of December 3rd, last year, 2021.
All right, need a second.
Second.
Thank you, Linda. Second by Linda. Motion by Dick to approve the minutes as written with one change on page 5. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Hey, Brian, it's Jeff. I'm going to abstain since I had to leave early.
Okay, thank you. All right, motion is passed. Your minutes are approved. At this time, we open the floor to any public comments on anything that is not on the agenda. Does anybody have anything to offer?
I have nothing, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny.
Same here, Brian.
And Brian, nice to see you too. Okay. Moving on to action and discussion items, we have one item under water, Allentown Division Water Filtration Plant and System Master Plan. Seeking approval. It is the yellow documents in the board packet. And it's digitally pages 9 through 17.
All right, and for this one, our one of our few staff members who are able to attend in person, Phil DePoe, will present. And Phil, do you want me to start sharing screen right away?
Sure.
Okay, I have a presentation that Phil put together for this, which I'll share on my screen so everyone can see. And it was also posted on our website and emailed to the board in advance if anyone is having difficulty doing the screen share today. That's available that way. Okay, Phil, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Lisa, and good afternoon, everyone. I want to provide a quick summary of what occurred 5-6 years ago with the first master plan at the Allentown filtration plant and how that's going to tie into this 2022 update. But before we go into that, I do want to apologize. My documents have the wrong date. For some reason, I thought today was January 13th when I created these documents a couple weeks ago. So what's on the board memo and on my PSA, I believe I mistakenly have January 13th on there. So my apologies for that. Just to get into some background with the lease agreement, the lease operating standards require a master plan document be performed every 5 years at both the Allentown filtration plant and the Allentown Kleins Island wastewater treatment plant. And the last master plan for the water plant was done in 2017. So that means that this next one is due by the end of this year. And then again, 2027 and on and on. It also requires that the professional have at least 10 years of experience with master system planning. And on the next page, you'll see the exact, I just took a screenshot of the operating standards. So that's where the need for this master plan is driven from, is from the operating standards. So I just want to give you some background as to why we're talking about this update again. And it's because of the lease agreement requires it. So with that background, I want to talk about what occurred the last go around in 2016/2017. There was an exhaustive RFP process with 4 firms were offered the opportunity to provide a proposal for the services. And Arcadis was the selected firm. And what they did in 2017 was basically 3 separate tasks. Task 1 was the condition assessment. Task 2 was a process evaluation. And task 3 combined task 1 and 2 and created a capital plan to use for planning purposes. So that's what was done 5-6 years ago. And that's what's going to be repeated for this update for 2022. So just to get into some specifics for task 1. What task 1 is, it's establishing the baseline condition. It's establishing the remaining useful life. It's giving every asset a score, basically. And this was, again, this occurred in May of 2016 is when they had their last on-site assessment. Where this took place was at the water filtration plant, the reservoirs, the storage tanks, and then the pump stations that we have. Let's say I was going to minimize the screen.
I'll ask you to do that.
So that's the what, when, and where. And so the quantity was, we broke it down into 6 different types. You'll see below there: building, electrical, HVAC equipment, tanks, and roofs. And then those types were, again, when you add them all up, there's actually 18 facilities that this plan covered. And 228 different assets were eventually put on a spreadsheet, which I'll get into shortly. So that's the quantity of task 1. And then Lisa, the next page is, I want to show you how the scoring was derived. So again, for all 228 assets, we gave an overall condition score. We gave it an overall criticality score. And the maximum of those two categories, we multiplied together to give you a risk score. So that's how the scoring was done. And then the bottom line there, that's just a calculation to show you how the useful life was calculated. So the intent is to repeat this process again and add assets, subtract assets if we want to. At the end of the day, the proposal that I have in front of you specifically references this table 2-11. So it took all their work and summarized it into a table form. So that table will be updated. And you can see the buckets. Those buckets are critical for the capital plan development. They have these three different buckets: the 0 to 10 bucket, the 10 to 25 bucket, and the 25 to 50 bucket. So again, table 2-11 will be updated. And then on the following slide is an example, a screenshot of that spreadsheet I referenced. So again, that's just a handful of the 228 different assets. And you obviously can't see the words, but you can see the idea with the color shading. The 0 to 5 score is a green, which means it's okay. 6 to 10 is a yellow, which means it needs to be looked at or monitored. And then the red, 11 to 15 is the quote unquote high priority assets that need to be addressed. So the two main updates that I'm proposing for 2022 is that table 2-11, and then this asset spreadsheet tool that they created. And since we're still in the beginning stages of developing our asset management program at LCA, there's some of these items in our internal City Works program to track the assets, but we're not quite where we want to be yet. So this will be another step in the right direction towards getting us to that asset management program that we've been talking about, the strategic plan. So that's task one. And again, the deliverables will be an updated PowerPoint and a tech memo, again, with those two specific documents updated. So task one is condition assessment. Task two is process evaluation. And again, this was delivered to LCA in early 2017. The main driver with task two is to identify existing and potential future process limitations. And a big piece here that I want to highlight is the regulatory compliance. It's going to, of course, the regulatory compliance is going to go in all three areas, but it's going to be a focus on task two. And if there's anything specific related to regulatory compliance, that will be documented in this master plan, and then it can be addressed separately via another authorization if needed. That makes it easier with the way the lease is structured to do change of law. So a separate authorization for a specific regulatory piece is the preferred mechanism to handle that. And again, what we want to do is update with staff interviews what has occurred in the past 5-6 years regarding process, any changes, anything that we need to be aware of for changes that will occur in the future because of regulations. Again, to identify any areas to reduce energy usage, chemical cost. So it's going to be basically an update of what happened in 2016. And the two main areas again are the filtration plant, and then the distribution reservoirs. So that's the focus of task two. This screen right here is just a screenshot of one of the presentations that Arcadis gave internally to LCA staff in August of 2016 with their initial findings. And with this task, we'll update that PowerPoint, we'll update the tech memo. And what I want to specifically mention is of course, the lead and copper rule, which is still a fluid situation with EPA, but that will be discussed in this report at a high level, and then any subsequent follow-up work will occur with a separate authorization to handle lead and copper. So that's the summary of task 1 and task 2. For task 3, again, it's taking what we did in task 1 and task 2 and creating basically it's a summary table that shows all the proposed projects, the cost, and when the appropriate time is to complete those projects. And that's, I do mention this in the board memo, that the next page, at least will show, actually after this page, is one of the most critical things from that master plan is that summary table. So again, this was delivered in August of 2017. It focused on all 18 facilities, but of course the filtration plant takes a majority of the plan. So that the next page this is the sheet that's I call it the master summary, that just shows every proposed project that was discussed internally, and when it's appropriate to do, when it's not appropriate to do. Again, this is nothing's locking us in with this summary. This is just a recommendation. And if we elect to do one, we have to vet that through the city, with the whole process with the major capital improvement process. So some of these projects have been completed, some of them haven't started. We'll work through with Arcadis if they get authorized to update this table to reflect the items that have been completed and add anything new. So that is a major component of task 3 is this table right here. And then along with that table, there's 15, 18 projects listed. Every project has its own specific detail sheet. So they'll update those detail sheets as well. And they also included anticipated permits per project. So those are the 3 main deliverables for task 3 this time around: schedule, costs, descriptions, and then permits. So that's a summary, a high-level summary of what tasks 1 through 3 look like. What I'm looking for the next steps is authorization to Arcadis to complete this update. And again, they have intimate knowledge of the plant, obviously, because they did the last master plan. They have intimate knowledge of the system because of their annual indenture report that they do. And regarding the reason not to do a full RFP here is due to a variety of reasons. Timing is one of them. The pandemic's another one of them. So the intent is to do an update for 2022 and then reassess in 2027 regarding that third update to the master plan. And that may be a full-blown RFP again. But again, for 2022, it made sense to do this quote-unquote smaller update, make it more efficient. If authorization is granted, I do want to have Arcadis provide a presentation to the board. We're thinking July or August, what they're shooting for. The specific authorization is for, again, $85,000 for Arcadis is my professional service authorization, and then $110,000 for a capital project authorization. And I do want to point out the difference between this update versus the first go around. So 110 is what I'm asking for now, and the prior update, or the first update, was 295. So it's a significant amount of savings, going with Arcadis this time. So again, 2027. After we have the asset management program in place, I think it would be maybe wise to do a fresh set of eyes in 2027. So that is all I had on the 2022 update, and I would be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, Phil, I have a question. The piping between that delivers the water from the filtration plant up to the reservoirs, is that not included in this?
It's not included in this. The specific distribution piping is not part of the master plan. That we're dealing with those individual, any piping is dealt with separately. So we're obviously, any regulations are going to be talked about regarding piping, but a specific piece of pipe is not part of the master plan.
When do we look at that piping?
If you recall, we have to do water main replacements every year.
Right.
Really. So it's always looked at.
Oh, yeah.
It's always looked at with that. And on a side note, we are focusing as part of our strategic plan, focusing on large diameter valves. So yeah, so it's not, it won't be spelled out in this plan, but it's being looked at. So
Thank you.
Any other board questions?
Yeah, Brian, I have a question. Phil, I do recognize it's very difficult to predict the future. But if you look at the 5 years ago, the plan that they give us for upgrading equipment for quality of water and so on and so forth, and we look at today and try to give a scorecard that how successful their recommendation have been and how successful we have been on implementing their recommendations. Can you elaborate on that?
yeah, sure, I'll take it first stab and I'll have Lisa or someone else chime in if they would like. Again, they recommended, I don't know, 15, 18 projects, and some of them were not doable because of city interests. Some of them were not doable because of money concerns with the lease concession amendment. But the ones that we could do, we did. And the ones that we couldn't do, we're starting to get around to them. And a prime example is the filter job. That's a high priority project that's underway as we speak. And so I guess regarding a scorecard, I was happy with the deliverable last time. Outside issues prevented us from moving forward at the pace I hoped for, but I think things are in the right direction. Lisa, you want to add anything to that?
Sure. Thanks, Phil. Yeah, I'll just add that putting this plan, the 2017 water plan, next to the master plan that we got for Klein's Island on the wastewater side, put together a really front-heavy list of projects that were, in the pipeline for the 5 to 10 year time frame. So, as we were discussing the results of of those two studies with the city over the 2018-2019 time frame, we really worked on prioritization between the two plans, and the prioritization process has really been wrapped up into the capital plans that we've presented to you every year. So I think it's been really helpful to have this work, and then also as a team bring those projects together and do our own evaluation with the folks who actually operate the systems to prioritize it based on the funds that we have available and the things that they're seeing on the ground at the plants to prioritize the project. So we've used it very heavily, but haven't followed it as gospel. We've used it as a guide as we've gone through that prioritization process.
Have we been surprised with something that it was not predicted in 2016 and 17, which required a large capital expenditures or something that we were not predicting, but it came up, came unexpected during these last 5 years?
I'll have Andrew or John chime in here. Nothing that comes to my mind specifically, no.
Nothing that pops into my mind.
Okay.
Yeah, 6 years ago or 5 years ago, lead and copper was in its infancy with EPA, and that was mentioned in the report. And of course, it's still a fluid situation. So
I think the big change would be potentially, not really a change or a surprise, but as we start to dive into each individual project, we learn more about what's required for the project and the scoping and phasing of the project. So what's shown in the master plan is really an estimate and a big picture 1,000 foot or 50,000 foot level estimate. And as we dive into the project and look at it more closely, the cost estimates may change or the phasing of the projects may change, but that's really about it.
I think the reason I asked this question, we're spending $110,000 for this process, right? And I'm hoping that from what we have learned from what they did for us for 2017 or 2016, what can we do differently as we go through this process? I do recognize in the past we had challenges, with the lease and so on and so forth. Now those are all behind us. So going forward, what we're going to be doing different, that with the money spent, with the recommendation that given, that we can be more fruitful on implementing some of those changes for the longevity of our asset that we have in operation.
I think that's a discussion we're going to have as we go through the process and start getting some preliminary results from Arcadis. And we do have some new team members also that are going to be participating that didn't participate last year. So now's the time to have those conversations as we're ramping into the project and getting some feedback from Arcadis.
Personally, I'm really happy to hear the presentation, the notion of possibly opening it up to other potential bidders next time. I have no problem with working with Arcadis now. They've done a great job for us, but they do a lot of work for us. And I'd like to give other people an opportunity to bid on this kind of a project. It's just, I'm glad that you had mentioned that the future will be doing that or consider it. So any other board comments?
Brian, I just have one question for Phil, just sort of following up on what Amir was asking. When all these facilities and the assessments are done, Phil, are there any tanks or any equipment that you cannot see or visibly inspect, that it's in service, it can't be taken out of service? So that to me would lie where the surprises would be if you have, for example, on the wastewater side, a digester tank that's in service, it can't be taken out of service. But on the water side here, is there anything like that? Or is it pretty much you guys can inspect everything? Because I assume a big part of this project is physical inspections and assessment, things like that.
Yeah, Jeff, the only, I guess, and John too, please chime in, John, but our massive reservoirs, the internal condition of the reservoirs, I know was part of the prior master plan, not a priority for the next, for the first bucket, but I would say the internal condition of our existing 3 reservoirs would be, to answer your question, Jeff, those 3.
Yeah, we're required to have that done for 5 years, and we've had a company come in and they use an underwater brain to go around and do the condition assessment while the tank is online. So that's what we had done before. Before that was actual divers going down there. We don't do that anymore. But yeah, we have access to everything on the water system.
Okay, thank you. Lisa, did you note that Ted has joined us?
I did, thank you.
Any other board questions? Any public questions?
Not at this time, Brian, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
I move we accept the capital plan authorization for $110,000.
Yeah, I need a second.
I'll second that. It's Jeff.
Jeff, okay, thank you. And that is a capital plan authorization to Arcadis for the water filtration plant master plan for a total project cost of $110,000. It is the planning phase. And that includes the professional services authorization of $85,000 specifically for Arcadis. Motion made and seconded. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on, the agenda, we have nothing under wastewater. We do have agenda item number 6, monthly project updates and information items. The January report was attached to the board packet. It is white and his digital pages 18 through 30.
Yes, thank you, Brian. For the monthly project update report, I just wanted to highlight one thing, well, actually 2 things. First of all, if you look through finance and administration, water and wastewater, you'll see that there are no additional items listed for January. So at this time, we have no agenda items for the next meeting, and I will coordinate with the chairman regarding potential cancellation of that meeting. The other thing I wanted to highlight is under finance and administration, the 2020 audit and financial statements. We do have an update there that we received what we needed from the Pennsylvania Municipal Retirement System. So LCA's audit and financial statements were able to be completed by the end of the year. So that's a nice update. And Ed will be working on scheduling with the auditors to be able to present those to the board at an upcoming meeting, but most likely not the second meeting in January because of scheduling conflicts. Ed, I don't know if you have anything more you'd like to say about that.
No, I think we'll hit it up sometime in February. That'll be easier to get the auditors together, I guess, on a virtual basis. And then we'll go through the 2020 statements before we do 2021.
Amazing process.
Yep.
Any other comments on the, go ahead.
Just that there's a lot of information items listed here in the report as usual. If there are any questions, we can try to answer them. And also beginning this month in January, the staff group has started to talk about some ways to reformat this board report to make project tracking a little easier for all of you, but we don't have anything to share with you yet. I just wanted to, as a coming attraction, that's something we'll be working on and rolling out in the months ahead. But if there's any questions about the information items, we can try to answer those.
Just on that notion, it would be nice to just have the cover sheet of executive information of those projects where changes have actually occurred, and then the back section be those ones that are just reminding us that no process has progress has been made. That way board can focus on just what is active and current, and if they want to know more than that, they can look at the ones that are inactive this past month or meeting. Okay.
Yep.
Just a thought, just to make it a little quicker to read through it. Any other comments, questions for Lisa or staff?
Yeah, Ted here. I have a question. It's really a big picture question, nothing specific. And I thought about it as I was looking at the meeting packet today and our format and how we go through things and how we do business. And this is not a complaint or a criticism. I just wonder is this the standard way that water and sewer authorities approach their meetings? Is this kind of the basic plan that people go through with reports like this? And again, this is a big picture question that we're not going to solve tomorrow, but I just once in a while wonder if we take a step or two back and just look at how we do business and wonder if there's a way to do it better and more efficiently by perhaps seeing how other folks do this stuff. Again, we have more than our plate that we can handle right now, but it's just a thought. Just a general comment.
Yeah, and Ted, that's a great point, and that's exactly what the staff has begun to talk about. And we've looked at a couple other authority reports that they provide to the board, but they range from very little to way more information than I think this board would like to see. So there's a whole continuum of different ways that authorities are doing this kind of thing. So trying to find the happy medium of the right information, the right level of information that you're interested in. We do think that there are some ways that we could consolidate the information a little easier into more of a snapshot of progress on things, rather than having you read 25 pages of text to get to the information you're looking for. So we'll be looking at some format changes that might help with that, but there is no one standard way that we've found.
Well, I'm sure there is. And again, this is not a criticism, believe me. And again, it's our job as the board not to run the business. It's our job is to make sure you all are doing your job, really. So there is too much information can be a problem, no doubt about it. But anyway, thank you.
Yep.
I would encourage any board member that if they have any comments on improvements to the meetings in general or the information provided, just contact Lisa directly. We don't need to do that in group form, but just provide her with your thoughts. If you see things that you feel are not necessary for the board to discuss, or information that you think should be discussed, just let her know and she can work with staff to make a proposal for any changes in the future.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. Moving on, the next item for the active agenda is the staff comments. And you said, Lisa, you had one comment to be made on COVID.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to just share a little bit of an update on where we are with the COVID pandemic. And as you can see, most of us are attending virtually today because of the very rapid increase in cases in Lehigh County. And it's affected all corners of the organization in different ways. I'm happy to report that we have not seen a high rate of employee illnesses. It's really, we have had some, not discounting that, but we've had no hospitalizations, no severe illnesses related to COVID, but we've had a lot of folks absent because of exposure. So it's a ripple effect. If someone has no symptoms but is exposed to someone at home or at work that has tested positive, then everyone that person had a meeting with in the prior couple of days is now out of work for a few days. So we're trying to manage that the best that we can, and we still have all the technology in place to do work from home, which is what I'm doing this week because of an exposure myself. So I'm not sick, but I had an exposure, and we're managing that kind of on a day-to-day basis, how that is working out. To help with our operational folks, we did today implement a protocol that we had in place last spring, which is to limit customer interaction in the field to emergency service visits only. So any service visits that are requested that are not on an emergency basis, we'll delay and schedule for another time. But if it's an emergency, of course, we'll be there, and we'll ask customers to wear a mask, and our employees will be wearing masks for those visits as well. So I wanted to make the board aware that we implemented that change today. And that's about it. We're doing everything that we can to keep employees safe and moving a lot of our meetings to virtual to help with that and keep moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, that's all I have.
All right, solicitor comments?
No comments, thank you.
All right. Public comments, anything from the public they wish to offer on any topics?
No, thank you, Brian.
No, thank you.
No comments.
No
Okay,
comments, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. All right, we have no executive session, so we have completed the business.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question. I just want to get, Lisa, what's this, or Phil, what's the, are we finished with the project over at Bush Acres? With the new pump station in the wells?
Chuck could answer that.
Yeah, sure. Scott, that project is completed. It's not closed out yet, but final restoration was performed. The upgraded facilities are started up, tested, and running. So we'll be closing out that contract probably within a month.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Chuck.
You're welcome.
All right, any other comments or questions? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy.
You too. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.